Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Tuesday. It is May the 6th. It feels like this year is running along. On this day, we are going to examine the same thing that I say every time that it comes up about government, that we have the worst government, and it is the worst solution to every problem, except maybe it's the only solution sometimes. It is certainly the worst solution whenever they have access to your money. So we're going to examine things like federal leeches, federal ticks, those hangers-on, what the Beltway really means to those in the area. There's a reason why Washington, D.C. and the area around it has incredibly insulated property prices, because they never have to worry. When that printed money goes out of the Federal Reserve, a huge chunk of it ends up right in that little space between the Beltway and a little bit bigger, that bullseye all around Washington, D.C. Those people just hang on. And the funny thing is they don't just start there and go, oh my God, how do I get federal money? They almost always start off as federal employees, which I think that's part of the issue. We're going to cover one particular story today because somebody broke it yesterday on X, that the FBI is spending almost $500,000 on training that every employee already gets. That should be problematic to you. I don't know what the definition of cutesy time is, but we've been throwing it around a lot on social media. If that's not cutesy time, I don't know what is. $486,000 for something that's already happening. Imagine if you could get that to go do something that's totally unnecessary. We're going to look a little bit into the company that's there. I want to talk about whistleblowers in general because there are quote unquote whistleblower attorneys that are now suing the federal government. And it's all connected. All these things are so simple. We're seeing some people made whole, but it's only the people that have the right connections to do so. You're seeing some other people that are not made whole. So before we get any deeper into the weeds, and lastly, and probably most importantly, it looks like, even though it's pissing rain outside right now in Texas, America, it looks like we're going to have a spicy and fiery summer. So mark my words on that one. I'll give you some tastes of that. It looks like we did not learn our lessons in 2020. And the federal government and the state governments all learned exactly the wrong thing. They capitulated, they gave room for destruction, and all those people just bidened their time perhaps, right? And now they are back at it again. So we're going to get into some of that stuff as well. Before we get started, let's go ahead and do a little shout to our friends over at My Patriot Supply. It's a good reminder that things usually go bad and you want to prepare in advance. You don't want to wait until they actually happen. There is something that's been happening in U.S. farmland that doesn't get a lot of attention. The Chinese, our biggest threat. We're actually going to talk about them a little bit later. The Chinese have been buying up hundreds of thousands of acres of U.S. farmland, a lot of it adjacent to U.S. military bases. They've taken control of various pieces of our critical supply chain, things like fertilizer, animal feed, farming equipment. Of course, we already know that they've had access to things like our tech industry, and they've also held on to all kinds of things in the pharmaceutical world. Why is that? It's pretty clear that they've tightened their grip on the global food production. If things go south, you need to be ready. You may not be able to advance by your semiconductors, but you certainly can advance by your food supply. That's why we trust My Patriot Supply. They're America's largest emergency preparedness company. And right now, they've got a deal that I like quite a bit. We've done this before. It's a 4-week emergency food kit. You get 72-hour food kits times 4. That's an extra 12 days of food absolutely free. In other words, you buy 30 days and you get 12 for free. That's not a bad gig. Plus, you get a chance to either use them for practice or toss them in other little places. That's 4 weeks of delicious meals that will last up to 25 years, delivering 2,000 calories per day. It is shipped fast. It is shipped free. We cannot control what the Chinese are about, but we can control how we are, in fact, prepared to deal with them. So that's why the website is preparelikekyle.com. Again, it's preparelikekyle.com. Preparelikekyle.com. It is in the show description, and you can get 12 days of emergency food for free on top of the 30 that you pay for. Solid deal. Like I said, it gives you practice. It gives you places you can stash it. You can always move these things around. We're going to get deeper into some of the stuff, including the Chinese threat today. Make sure you guys are preparing whatever that looks like on your end. This is the one that we use at our house. All right, let's get into it. Since we're talking about China, I think I actually want to touch this a little quickly. This is not tied into anything other than I believe this man to be a whistleblower. So I guess it segues somewhat into the whistleblower discussion. There's a guy who's a former guest of our podcast. He's an author. He is a unlawfully and improperly removed military officer, and now he is looking to be the Undersecretary of Defense. Remember, not everybody in the Trump administration has already gotten their job in. They haven't all been moved into the places they need to be. This is a guy named Matt Lohmeyer. I've dealt with him only so much as I've interviewed him. I think we've had a couple of messages back and forth since then. I watch what he does on social media. He obviously went out and told Donald Trump what the issue was in DOD as he saw it and was offered a position in the administration. And the Trump administration, to their credit, carried through on that. And they nominated him. He is a very likable and even-keeled man, the kind of person that you like having as commanders. I often found that leadership is one thing, but having really good command presence, it's something kind of different, especially at the upper echelons. I want critical, tactical thinkers. I want people that are reflective, that are self-critical, that are deeply, deeply contemplative, that are capable of moving and working under stress and not changing their affect. One of the things that we saw when I was working in the Air Force, the most impressive thing that guys would get awarded for when they were working in the combat control space, you would see guys like Rudy Gutierrez, and he'd be working with an SFODA. He would be shot through and through the chest, have a lung collapsed, and the pilots would report, and it would actually be listed in his citation for the Air Force Cross. They would say, we never actually knew this man was basically mortally wounded, that would have basically died, lest he had some immediate intervention by the SF team. A guy who was doing a chest dart on himself and bleeding out the collapsed lung he had in order to make it work so he could stay on the radio, and nobody in the aircraft above him knew the difference. Matt Lohmeyer has that affect. And I'm going to play you a video because this is also interesting. Should we not move men into positions that have this very interesting and potentially unknown to many capability? Matt Lohmeyer, at the end of this little clip you're going to hear, talks about the Chinese threat, which is the single biggest geopolitical foe for the United States in the military sense, but also, as we just talked about, when it comes to supply chains. The Chinese don't want an open war with the United States. I don't think they're going to start shipping people here to invade with a kinetic war, the way that we might see some other folks. We're going to show some Hamas, some Students for Palestine, some Antifa types. That's a kind of a kinetic, agitation chaos. They're more interested in the long-term plan, the 50, the 100-year move. Don't we need people in the Defense Department that not just know about that understand it, that have studied it, but actually have been there, have spoken the language? Did you know that Matt Lohmeyer spoke Mandarin? Because he casually drops it into this clip, and I didn't know that. I want you guys to listen for that at the end. Let's start with that. This was his confirmation hearing. It'd be very difficult, I would think, although Tammy Duckworth had no problem doing so, saying that there was anything wrong with the way this man went about his business, and listening to how deliberate he is to try to call out his whistleblower attempts to bring light to the American people. He ended up writing a book about it, and she basically has so much ignorance. We're not going to play that clip, but he was questioned from an ignorant position, like so many of our leaders are. How about someone who actually has ground experience dealing with our enemy and has spent a lot of time, actually so much so to learn the language that they actually understand the enemy in the way that the enemy actually operates? Here's this little clip from his confirmation hearing.
Thank you, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and members of this committee for considering my nomination to be Undersecretary of the Department of the Air Force. I'm grateful for the opportunity and for the trust of President Trump. To the many troops, men and women, both uniformed and civilian, who have expressed overwhelming support for me, thank you. To those listening who have served or who presently serve, you have my gratitude. I wish to acknowledge and thank my friends and family for their support, some of whom are here today, including my parents. I'd especially like to acknowledge and thank my wife, Sarah, who is here. What a blessing it is for a man who personally cares deeply about the Air Force core values of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do, to live with a wife who likewise believes in and embodies those values. Furthermore, she, more than anyone else, knows that I strive to be a man of integrity and that I hope to inspire others to live in that same spirit. The Undersecretary of the Air Force is, by law, the Chief Management Officer of the Department of the Air Force. My breadth of experience serving in both the Air and Space Forces makes me uniquely qualified for the job at this pivotal time in American history, a time in which we face very serious threats to our national security. Even before receiving my commission, while still a cadet at the United States Air Force Academy 20 years ago, I began to become aware of the threats we face when I participated in a special exchange program to China that we no longer have. The United States government sent a small contingent of Mandarin-speaking Air Force cadets to the People's Liberation Army Air Force Academy in Changchun, China. It's north of North Korea. For a brief cold stint in March of 2005, I lived in the dorms with PLAF cadets, attended their classes, even aeronautical engineering, did PT with those cadets in the snow, ate in their chow hall, and was wittingly placed on a losing basketball team so that they could film our crushing defeat in front of their entire cadet body, no doubt for distribution in state media. Most U.S. Air Force Academy cadets know what I mean when I say there's no better view of the Air Force Academy than in the rearview mirror. But after spending time at the Chinese Air Force Academy, returning to USAFA was a treat.
Isn't that kind of telling? How many people have actually wittingly seen what propaganda looks like from the enemy and the way the enemy does it, who have actually gone out and eaten their food and trained in their PT and spoken the language with them? I don't think that's very common. I don't think, and especially because he mentioned that that has gone away. One of the ways that we always used to talk about being able to avoid serious conflict was having an understanding with our enemy, having open lines of communication. How many of those students he's not allowed to maintain with them, but he could reconnect with, who are probably now senior just like he is? Wouldn't that be something? Having people that understood the threat because they invested starting at a very young age. You guys know where you were when you were 18 or 19 years old. That's what we're talking about here. Cadet status. How many of you had the foresight to say, I'd like to go see what my enemy looks like and live with my enemy and eat the food of my enemy? That's a serious investment. It's kind of a terrifying option, too, to go and be a U.S. Air Force officer cadet and go subject yourself to whatever it is. Like you said, put on a losing basketball team for propaganda value, knowing full well what it was. You can hear the measured way that he speaks about it. These are the kind of people that I expect to be in charge. Serious people who do serious things, who are not out for self-aggrandizement, who are not out for personal wealth gain. I don't know what his personal wealth is, but I imagine it can't be that high being an Air Force officer, even if he made a ton of money on his book. You guys can find the book. You can find our interview. Our chat mod, Rose, put it out there. It was called The Irresistible Revolution. He wrote an entire book about Marxism taking over the United States Air Force and, broadly speaking, the U.S. military. So aren't those the people that you expect that we're paying to take a look for what's going on out here? The Marxism has invaded all the places. And I think Matt Lohmeyer talked about that at length on our podcast, but he's done it, nonstop. It is his single focus of crusade. And he understands it from a level of actually being there. And then you see the kind of people like this. This is a story coming out of ABC. A whistleblower attorney. Even the use of that expression is offensive in many ways. A whistleblower attorney sues the Trump administration to restore the revoked security clearance. This is a guy named Mark S. Zaid. You can find him online. He's Mark S. Zaid Esquire. The famous quote, he had an interchange with Leslie McAdoo, someone I deal with sometimes. I've been on some Twitter exchanges with her and some panel discussions. He said, I've gotten clearances for guys who had child porn issues. That's one of the most favorite. That is one of the wildest things to have posted publicly. That we can hold people who have child pornography issues and get them a security clearance. This is not a made up tweet. This is something we just keep in our back pocket. The Suspendables are well versed in that. And why am I talking about this guy? Let me read the story. He's one of more than a dozen individuals who had his clearances revoked. By the way, good. That is what is supposed to happen. That's what we expected people like Tulsi Gabbard to go in and do. Another person who kind of gets what the enemy is about, having been canceled herself, who having been surveilled by her own government under the Quiet Skies program. After having a security clearance revoked by President Donald Trump, high-profile whistleblower attorney. Oh, he's a high-profile one, so there's that. Mark Zaid on Monday filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration seeking to have his clearance restored, saying that it was revoked for improper political retribution. The Trump administration is seeking to neutralize someone viewed as an adversarial threat, the complaint said in a Washington, D.C. filing. In March, President Trump issued a presidential memorandum. This was an executive order that revoked security clearances of more than a dozen individuals, including Zaid, the former President Joe Biden, former President Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, some others. A move, the complaint said, is a dangerous, unconstitutional retribution or retaliation by the President of the United States against his perceived political enemies. So Donald Trump considers Mark Zaid to be a political enemy per Mark Zaid. And they think it's unconstitutional that the president, who is the actual highest authorizing authority when it comes to security clearance, the state of the nation, the national security mission, these things fall directly within the purview of the executive. And they filed a lawsuit saying that you cannot do that. Now, I'm living proof, the fact that I sit here behind this microphone and run a podcast on a daily basis, that you can, in fact, revoke a security clearance with almost no oversight. It takes almost nothing to do so. Simply, they have to say, you no longer have a security clearance. We think that there are personnel issues, maybe the fact that you've associated with people who have child pornography issues. Maybe the fact that you have decided to engage in an outright political and partisan attack against the person that is now sitting in the office. We think that's a personality issue. And by the way, under Navy versus Egan, you have no right, zero right, as it currently stands. As the current case law determines, you do not have the ability to question it. Here's where I get the questions. This is why I am so aggressive right now, looking at who is running our FBI. Because I don't care who's running it. If you're out there partying and hanging out with movie stars and UFC fighters, and you're out flying around and doing photo ops with Wayne Gretzky and the president of FIFA soccer, that's not what I'm interested in. I cannot fathom the idea that somebody who is trying to retake one of the most dangerous federal institutions back for the people, that's what we were told Kash Patel was going to do. That's the reason why, even though there's been some personal disagreements with someone like Dan Bongino, I am hopeful that they could be successful about it. This is why I think they will not be. This is not a new website. This is not a new news story. It does come from the New York Times. It says FBI agents asked the court to bar the Trump team from disclosing their names. Do you remember this? This is before Patel was confirmed. He was confirmed on February 20th, as I recall. I have a text message from him saying, it's time that we all get to work now. I'm going to continue doing the work that I'm doing. I didn't want to go back and work for the FBI. I told him as much on the phone. But these are the people that do work there. FBI employees who participated in January 6 investigations contend in 2 lawsuits they believe the administration intends to reveal their identities, endangering them and their families. Have we seen that happen at all, folks? Have any of you in the last, let's call it 2 months, right? March, April, now we're into May, it's 3 months. In the last 3 months, has the FBI disclosed the names of the FBI agents involved in January 6 investigations that ran it? Other than Steve Jensen, who we did a pretty good job of covering on, it hasn't been the case. Steve Jensen, who actually was the person by his own hand and own testimony who declared them terrorists. Remember, he was the domestic terrorism operations section chief. That means he was the top person determining what was underneath his own little program, and the program was domestic terrorism. He's the reason why every single J6er had 2 cases on them. One was a criminal case, usually for trespassing, for parading or something like that. And the other one was called a 266 Oscar, which Newsweek covered pretty extensively, saying that they were considered anti-government, anti-authority, violent extremists. No violence required to do that. No extremism required to do that. Simply a constitutional focus and using certain things like, I don't know, the Betsy Ross flag, which we have on the wall behind me. Maybe you have symbols from your military time because you're a veteran. Maybe you have a thin blue line flag because you were in law enforcement. You actually believe in the oath of office. That could be enough to refer to you as a quote unquote violent extremist, according to people like Steve Jensen. That's what his program put out. They also called people militia violent extremists because they believe that the Second Amendment is important. Thank God we have people like Pam Bondi putting Harmeet Dillon into the office. And I don't know enough about Pam Bondi one way or another. I'm watching her. I'm kind of ambivalent at the moment. I'm going to give her space to work. because some of the people she's putting in place are actually getting stuff done. We're actually seeing the Civil Rights Division, for the first time, try to defend the civil right of being able to own a firearm, which is kind of a big deal here. I spoke with an NBC reporter the other day, and it came up about something about firearms because we had a couple of emailed, I don't know if they're threats or ominous emails or whatever it is. Got a couple of those. The discussion came up, and I was like, I'm not an easy target. I've got a firearm over my left shoulder. I've got one sitting on my right hand. I've got a shotgun sitting behind our guest chair. I got a 44 mag revolver hanging just above where you see that fin on the wall. We got guns all over the place in this house. We're not an easy target. We actually believe in that civil liberty, which is that man should be able to defend himself, and that the government is actually limited by the Second Amendment, not me. The government is not allowed to come into my space. But I want to continue deeply on this idea of a whistleblower attorney, quote unquote whistleblower attorney, asking for something that I cannot fathom. And the same guy was involved in handling the lawsuit for the FBI Agents Association, who did not want their names associated with the work that they did. Remember, one of the novel things that happened under the January 6th prosecutions, which we have not seen any public correction of, was the fact that they went after cases that should never have been done. Kind of like they went after the whistleblowers who were so public. They went after the cases that shouldn't have been done, and they did so in a way that have never been done before. And even the criminal complaints, which, by the way, every single whistleblower saw that these J6 prosecutions involved criminal complaints. When I graduated from Quantico in 2016, we were told by our legal department, you will never most likely do a criminal complaint, because that's not how the FBI does business. They do long-term investigations. They take things to grand jury. They get that indictment. They don't do things by information. These are the two ways that you can charge somebody: information or indictment. The criminal complaint part of it, we're going to write it up, we're going to swear it out in front of a judge, and then we're going to go forward, instead of taking it to a grand jury who gets the information and then returns with returns with their decision, what they call a true bill. You won't do that, generally speaking. Every single J6er was done with a criminal complaint. Why? Because it resulted in an arrest warrant that they could go after, and not a criminal summons, which is something Steve Friend put his life and his career on the line for, and lost it. Meanwhile, you got this guy. Now, this story from the New York Times says FBI agents asking the court to bar the Trump team from disclosing their names. Who handled that case for the FBI Agents Association? None other than, I've been able to help people out with child pornography issues, Mark S. Zaid. And also Norm Eisen, which is listed in the same exact story. Norm Eisen, who handled the first Trump impeachment. Mr. Zaid, along with the leaders of the fund is referred to as the State Democracy Defenders Fund. You know how much we love the word democracy when we start talking about Democrats. They describe themselves as a nonpartisan group which fights against election sabotage and autocracy. Oh, really? And it's run by Mr. Zaid, Norm Eisen, and a retired federal judge named Nancy Gertner. They warned the administration that they were willing to sue over the identities of the agents, threatening litigation. These are agents that work for you, that have a public accountability to you, and who I have seen, amusingly, retired agents come out in defense of, saying that you should not, quote unquote, dox the name. You shouldn't say the name of people who currently work for the FBI. That is a violation of their privacy. I used to work with a guy named Brian Acee, A-C-E-E. I didn't know Brian, actually. He was just in the same office as me. The only reason I knew Brian is because he regularly had threats from cartel members and from gangbangers that were still in jail, that he put in jail or put in prison. We did investigations out of my field office like at least once a month for Brian Acee related threats, because his name was listed on every single complaint, and he put a lot of bad guys in jail. That actually is a badge of honor for an FBI agent, to have your name publicly known as the guy that puts gangbangers in jail. When there's an entire group of agents whose job it is to go and investigate the threats against you because you are so successful at what you do, and you can check him out. He's in the Albuquerque field office. He does a great job, is everything I can tell. And everybody that I knew had a solid foundation in believing that he did good work, because he was a criminal agent. He had no business. He didn't redact his name from criminal complaints. He just did his work. And occasionally the FBI had to go and put a security detail on him. And regularly we'd go interview people in prison or other gangbangers out there in the world. Isn't that something? But we couldn't say anything about the people that were in charge of the January 6th investigations. And they're nonpartisan, despite the fact that this dude is a hard leftist working with the people who actually went out there and tried to impeach Donald Trump. Remember, how many whistleblowers did you see come out saying that there was something wrong? The reason they're not coming out now is they've seen what happens to people who are whistleblowers. I've had folks reach out to me at every level, from the frontline agents to frontline supervisors to people at headquarters across this country, saying that the current institution that exists right now is an absolute nightmare, that it is run by social media influencers and they are following click trends that are on X, which is why I spend as much time there as I do. That's crazy. Remember, they actually were shocked at how many people were willing to expose the malfeasance. This is a little exchange with Eli Crane talking to Chris Wray. And remember, the only thing you do when you are being criticized in the FBI as the director, same as Chris Wray, is you go out and you tout your recruiting numbers, which unfortunately Kash Patel is doing right now.
Sir, do you find it interesting how many whistleblowers there are right now from your organization coming forward and testifying to Congress about the conduct of the FBI and how they no longer even want to work for the FBI? They're willing to risk everything, including their livelihood, to come and talk to Congress about what they perceive to be a change in the culture at the FBI.
Certainly, I respect the role of whistleblowers in our system. It's an important part of the way our system of government works. When it comes to the culture of the FBI, I'm very proud of our 38,000 people. I think you will be relieved to know that the number of people applying to be special agents from the state of Arizona has gone up over 135% over the last 5 years. And the view that you've just described, I don't think matches what I hear from the 55-plus chiefs and sheriffs and other agency heads in the state of Arizona who've dedicated something like 200 plus of their task force officers to serve on our task forces.
They do that because when you're on an FBI task force, you get paid a lot of money in overtime. And that overtime dollar is funded by the federal government. It doesn't come out of the pocket of those sheriffs or those police chiefs. So Chris Wray, as usual, was disingenuous. You'll remember how many times we had coverage of Chris Wray and what he did at the FBI. We continue to do that here. I don't care who the director is. It doesn't matter that I thought that person was a friend of ours. By the way, how many of you actually knew that Kash Patel was worth somewhere between $6 and $30 million? That was one of my major complaints about Chris Wray. He didn't know how regular people operated. Chris Wray made $9.2 million before he became the FBI director. It was a pay hit. I found out in the disclosures from 2024 that was listed out for the members of the Senate that Kash Patel's individual consulting company was paid like $2.1 million last year alone. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that he was so personally wealthy because he actually carries himself like a regular guy, unlike Chris Wray. The problem is that wealthy people that get into a place where they can act even more wealthy tend to look more like billionaires when their friends are like multimillionaires or billionaires. And I know for a fact that Kash had friends. We sat at a dinner table together where one of his buddies was talking about his private jet, flying back and forth to multiple houses across the country, deciding to leave Las Vegas in the middle of the night, calling somebody or texting them to fuel up his jet so he could leave that night because he decided to. Those are the kind of guys that Kash rolled with. It didn't make sense to me because I thought he was such a normal guy. I guess if he's worth, either 6 or 10 or $20 million, it would make a little bit more sense. I didn't know that. Shame on me. I didn't do my due diligence. We knew that Dan Bongino was a multimillionaire. Did you know that Kash Patel is too? So now for the first time in the history of the FBI, both of the people that are supposed to be running the Bureau are worth more money than any of you are listening to this podcast. Isn't that something? Makes you think it's fake. We talk about somebody that's not fake, people who have been supporting us at the beginning, and I do really appreciate them. They are awesome folks. We've been working with them since February of 2023, but more importantly, I've been using their products since October of 2017, including when I was just a regular guy making less than $100,000 a year, sitting and watching bad guys out through my window. You guys can support my friends over at Patriot Coolers by going to patriotcoolers.com and using my promo code KYLE. Don't spend money you don't have. But if you're in the market, they're always around me. I travel with them everywhere I go. They are nonstop. I will leave them with friends if I have to and buy another one because I believe in their company so much. I've got their coffee mug sitting on the desk full of coffee right now. And because it's raining and I need to hydrate, I've got their monster mug right here. This is the major 40 ounces. It's awesome. It's a great, and if they could get this lid for everything, they would be winning. Gives you multiple ways to drink it, keeps your beverages cold for 24 plus hours. You'll find ice in there. If you leave it on the countertop, come back a day or two later. I've done it over an entire weekend. They do exactly what you'd expect them to do, and they're a company that's not going to cancel you for being a conservative. They've supported us since the beginning because of that. PatriotCoolers.com is the promo code. If you guys look in the show notes, you'll find a little link that will take you to the Kyle Seraphin Show collection. If you want to get one like the one we have sitting on the wall over here, that's got the engraved flag. You can get our badge, the upside down badge, which, by the way, is still upside down, the Suspendables badge. It's PatriotCoolers.com. Again, that promo code, KYLE. Very easy to get. You're going to get free shipping at $50. Check them out. If you're in the market, they're a good company to look into. And they're not going to grift you. They're going to do a fair exchange for the dollar amount that you guys are interested in. The issue with all of this stuff, and I don't have any faith in the New York Times, I don't have any faith in any of the media groups that are pushing this stuff out there, is that they're all fake. And they're all covering things in a disingenuous way. Here's Donald Trump saying the same thing. He went out on Meet the Press, which is always kind of funny. Whenever he goes adversarial, I get a kick out of it. I saw Dave Portnoy do an equally adversarial thing against ABC, and I might play that tomorrow. I didn't pull the clip for today. But someone just needs to tell these people. And the fact that he keeps sitting down with them, Trump does, it's actually fun because now he just doesn't care. So enjoy this. He's going to actually give them a dose of their own medicine. He's going to just tell them the truth.
The media is so fake, including, like even the way you ask questions. Every question is asked in a negative vein. There's a toy company that took a toddler's, whatever, but you don't talk about the fact that gasoline is down at numbers that nobody believes possible. You know why they're down, by the way? Drill, baby, drill. We're drilling like crazy right now.
We try to make sure every question is fair, Mr. President.
Look, every question you ask says a very negative slant.
No, but look, I'm just curious.
I'm fine for responding to you. I don't think you're very difficult at all to respond to be honest with you. But you know what? You should ask some positive things like, sir, it's amazing what you've done with gasoline. Because you know what? Gasoline's big business. A stroller is not big business.
He's telling them how to do their job. I watched Dave Portnoy say, I'm going to ask you a question. And the journalist said, I'm running this interview. I'm the one who runs this interview. And he just slammed the laptop and said, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Well, like I said, we'll probably play it tomorrow. It's full of a lot of swearing because it's Dave Portnoy. He's the president of Barstool Sports. But he's like, yeah. She's like, I'm a journalist. The idea that you're a journalist, so you're in charge of like what the answers are, all of that stuff has been just a gaslight to us. Trump's calling it out. I think having sane voices like Matt Lohmeyer out there doing it. And then we thought we were getting people who had been calling it out the same way that I'm doing it, the same way Trump is doing it, to run our our federal agencies. You know what? I was going to save this for a little bit, but I'll just do it right now. We'll just do it in the meat of the potatoes here. I saw you in the chat. I see you guys when you're talking. Oh, how come you don't give Cash and Dan more time? It's been so difficult. They spent 10 years. Like, you can't fix things overnight. Can't you? I've already shared with you how you could do things faster than they're doing it. In fact, a lot of this stuff should have been done beforehand. But let's look at this, because this was shared on X and it didn't get a ton of exposure, but it should. I want you to look at the date that's highlighted on there. This is coming from the federal procurements. 4/21/2025. That's the date that it was signed. 4/21/2025. Okay. So that happened after Bongino was in, and it happened after Kash Patel had been confirmed. Both of them were firmly at the FBI at this point in time. The contracting agency office is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Division 1200. And the amount of money in question is $484,000. It's $484,888.23 to be very specific. And what did we spend that on, the American people? What did we spend our good money on? We are getting provided informational, in-person, and online virtual federal retirement seminars and podcast sessions for Federal Employees Retirement System, also known as FERS, and then also CSRS, which almost nobody is on anymore. There's a couple of people, but not at the FBI for general. We paid almost $500,000. We've agreed to pay almost $500,000 for podcasts and in-person instruction for something that the FBI requires every single employee to get in their first week on the job. The first week is called the 1 week. They send you to Quantico no matter who you are, which is expensive, by the way. We fly people from all over the country into the academy at Quantico to be, quote unquote, indoctrinated or whatever you want to call it, introduced to being a federal employee. And they all get the 1 week. The 1 week says, this is how your leave works. This is how you sign up for your federal benefits. This is what your retirement looks like. This is how you contribute to your retirement. This is when you can collect it. Here are some pamphlets. Would you like to go with Blue Cross Blue Shield? Would you like to go with another provider? Here are all your options. There's a healthcare fair. We'll teach you all of this stuff. I thought it was a complete waste of time when I showed up. I thought I was going to get there and get my ass kicked, and we were going to start learning how to take down bad guys. But the first week is just cutesy time. It's 100% cutesy time. Whatever that is, it's got to be the 1 week that you get as a new federal employee. And so now we're going to give them $500,000. Who are we giving this $500,000 to, by the way? We're giving it to a company called BMRA. So I pulled up their website because I was curious about BMRA, and we wanted to know, who is this company that we're going to give $500,000 for podcast sessions for a year? Here's the funny thing. I know a little bit about podcast sessions, and it turns out there's actually another guy at the FBI who knows a little bit about what podcasts cost and what they can make and what they should do and what they should provide and how hard it should be. Could Dan Bongino, as the deputy director, literally walk down to the media group, which has been putting out all these spin videos and editing together high-speed clips of Kash Patel wearing cool guy camouflage? Could they go out there and put together like a little podcast explaining the thing? They already have people that work at the FBI and the HR department that facilitate the retirement system. Do we not have experts that work inside the federal government that actually know a little bit about the federal retirement system? We have to go to an outside company. We went to BMRA for $500,000. Who we are, they say. We're experts in government-related business processes at your service. BMRA, based out of Manassas, Virginia. It's that bullseye circle where all of that money, and this is the definition of being a tick on the ball sack of the American people. Excuse my language, but that's where ticks hide, right? Anybody who's ever done like a woodworking thing, you have to go and check under your sack. All right. BMRA has been in operation for over 50 years. This does not make me feel any bit better. Carrying on a legacy of expertise and training and professional services that increase efficiency and effectiveness within government organizations and industry. If you told me that nonsense, I want to fall over and hate everything about you. Let's just read a little bit further about it. Our standards of excellence and respect for public service began with the founder of this company, Donald E. Sewell, S-O-W-L-E, back in 1973, back before it was even cool, but it was still going on. This is military-industrial complex. In that year, Mr. Sewell, a U.S. Air Force colonel, retired, established Don Sewell, I hope I'm saying that right, Associates, also known as DSAI, a diversified professional services firm specializing in the fields of acquisition management, procurement, logistics, and contract administration, amongst other things. He was a procurement policy leader and would later be appointed by Ronald Reagan, where he served in the Office of Federal Procurement Policy from 1981 to 1985. This is what the swamp looks like. I thought that we were getting rid of this crap. I thought the whole point was Trump was going to come in and clean it up. Again, he's not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. And yet, didn't we want to have DOGE? Is DOGE not looking at this kind of company? This kind of company should be out of business. In 1981, it was renamed Business Management Research Associates, BMRA, which means nothing and it says nothing, and it can hide in a nondescript building in Manassas, Virginia. As a result of their work, we've helped more than 500,000 government and industry employees advance their careers in public service. That also doesn't mean anything. Our commitment to adult education and business-related services remains constant. Again, you collect hundreds of thousands of dollars giving garbage training that is already out there and available within the federal government. Of course, it's certified as a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, an SDVOSB. I guess we're one of those here too at the Kyle Seraphin Show. A guy basically spent his time serving in the Air Force, couldn't realize how to make it on his own, and did the thing that we train people to do, which is go back to the trough. There's a reason why when you're working in the government, we refer to it as Uncle Sugar. Have you guys ever heard this term? Uncle Sugar is actually Uncle Sam when Uncle Sam opens up his pocketbooks. It's a real thing. Why are we giving this group $484,000 for what? $485,000 so they can occupy this business here, this little like nondescript government garbage building in Manassas, Virginia. There's the Long and Fosters on their location. 9817. It's all public record here. 9817 Godwin Drive, Unit 202. That's what it looks like. It looks like this. Crappy conference rooms with 70s lighting, ugly hallways with old 80s tiles in them, haven't been redone in decades, probably have an antiquated fire system. There you go. Carpet stains. That's my favorite. Can you get a place that has stains on the carpet? This is what we're paying for. One little contract. Is that nauseating to anybody else? There's their sales floor, I'm sure of it. Like, look at it. There it is. There's those windows. Those things were established in the 1970s as well. All of these things grew out of a ton of money just spit out of the federal government. And it's your money. And it's my money. And in theory, we were sending somebody there to clean this crap up. I thought that's what this was about. Trump said it. It's also fake. There are real problems. You can actually see real successes. How about this? This seems somewhat pretty impressive. This is coming from my friends over at Catholic Vote. This is in today's loop. DOJ is opening an investigation into a Washington law that targets Catholic confession. Didn't we actually think that the whole purpose of our government was to actually protect our fundamental freedoms? This was the trade-off, that we got a Bill of Rights for what? So that you wouldn't see investigations into things by the federal government, by any government, into those fundamental freedoms, like the way that you worship. And one of the most important freedoms that we have, you have a couple of places where you can actually speak with impunity. You're supposed to have a privilege of confidentiality and privacy with your attorney, with your spouse. This is basic con law stuff, folks. And with the person in the privacy of your confessional, with your priest or your pastor when you go to confess your sins. Because even the founders realized that there was a real importance that you should be able to practice your religion without having the government come in and lean on the priest and lean on what was going on within your church. The Department of Justice Monday. This is a great move. By the way, this is Harmeet Dillon's group now. We watched 100 attorneys leave the DOJ's Civil Rights Division because they thought it was a bad use. Don't tell me things can't happen quickly when Harmeet Dillon walks in and on day one, 100 people are resigning. Because they knew that cutesy time was over for them. And what is she doing? She's taking the Civil Rights Division and actually protecting civil liberties like the First Amendment and the Second Amendment for freaking once. Wouldn't that be nice? They launched a civil rights investigation into a Washington state law that would force Catholic priests to report child abuse even when disclosed during the sacrament of confession. Does anybody want child abuse to continue? No. No one does. I'm a parent of 4. I think those people should be taken out and skinned. And yet, there is a place where the government cannot intrude, and it is the confessional, and it is also with your attorney. It was another abuse that we saw in the FBI going after J6ers, invading and putting sources into meetings with attorneys, recruiting people who were going to actually help them cheat in their prosecutions. You guys get that? There's actually a purpose for our government, and there's been documented sins of that government. And rather than go and have more of them, this is actually halfway useful. The state law is called SB 5375. It was signed into existence just 4 days ago. Don't tell me you cannot move quickly in government when there are examples of it happening. It's set to take effect in July. It adds clergy to the list of professionally, legally required reporting parties for suspected abuse. And it explicitly eliminates legal professions from the confessional seal. It is a violation of the First Amendment, said the DOJ. It appears on its face to violate the First Amendment. It demands that Catholic priests violate their deeply held faith in order to obey a law. That is a violation of the Constitution. It is a breach of the free exercise of religion, and it cannot stand in a constitutional government. So saith Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, AAG. The same office, AAG, were the ones that went after us for COVID, folks. This is what it would look like if you were taking things back. You get somebody that actually has some freaking principles. The law appears to single out clergy as not entitled to assert applicable privileges as compared to other reporting professionals. We take this matter seriously. We look forward to Washington State's cooperation with our investigation. This is what it should be about. This is what your civil rights division should be doing, protecting civil liberties. Why is that relevant? I've gotten guys who had child pornography issues cleared. Here's the thing that's really ugly. attorneys should actually be able to hold those privacies. You have to be able to discuss your legal defense with somebody. It just turns out if you're that somebody who does that kind of work, and then you also represent the FBI Agents Association, as is listed in that New York Times story, people like Mark Zaid, that guy, isn't that problematic? Is that really the kind of thing that FBI employees and specifically FBI agents should be associating with? Should you go get the guy that helped people keep clearances that had child pornography issues? I don't know what a child porn issue is, but I know that if you're dealing with child pornography, you are one of the worst people in the world, period. That's it. And the FBI Agents Association, that represents those so-called rank and file, the good men and women of the FBI, according to Sean Hannity, those people went and got a guy who went and defended child pornographers and consumers of that federal crime to represent them. Why would they do that? Is that not problematic for anybody else? You don't get guilt by association, but you do tend to choose lawyers that can solve problems for you that have experience in real problems like that. Are you really going to go do that? I would never want that guy to represent me. There's an ideological similarity. In fact, anybody who's ever gone out there to try to get imagine Mark Zaid defending a J6er. Wouldn't happen. Democrats didn't do it. They writ large wrote off J6ers. So why is it that the people that work inside our Justice Department, specifically FBI employees, work under DOJ? All of your stuff comes in from DOJ. Why would those people choose that guy who's anti-Trump? Unless that's where they aligned. And I get it. You have a culture problem. I get it more than those guys get it. I get it more than the people who run it. But don't tell me that it's over when you're out there signing checks for dudes to make a podcast when you, in fact, made your money doing podcasts. And there's now almost 500 grand of our money. I thought that's what we were all about here, trying to fix this problem. Is that not problematic? Let me tell you why I think things are going to continue to get spicy. We're going to see blame posted from the previous administration, from the previous failure. The DEI hires like Pete Buttigieg, whose apparently most big competency was that he ran a medium-sized city not very well, and he also sleeps with a gay man at night. That's apparently his major competency. We're going to talk about Department of Transportation issue because they're going to try to throw it on Sean Duffy. I think that's pretty clear. I'm already seeing some of that from Jasmine Crockett, which means if that's where the messaging is starting, it will go trickle down by some of the dumbest people. We're going to get there in 1 second. I'm going to also remind you, just because I just did the order the other day, we have a deal still with Matt Had Jerky. If you guys have not checked out Matt Had Jerky, it's matthadjerky.com/Kyle. Matt, M-A-T-T, Hat, H-A-T, Jerky, matthadjerky.com/KYLE. If you guys want to get some of the best jerky on the planet, it's an outstanding choice, whether you're trying to lose weight by doing keto, whether you're trying to do carnivore, whether you just want a nutritious snack that's not going to have the crash and let you down. Go ahead and check out my friends over at Mad Hat Jerky. We just ordered up multiple 12-ounce bags, which is their biggest bag, because I realized I hadn't done it in a while and we were running out. If you guys want to, if you want to check them out, again, use our promo code KYLE. It'll save you 20% at checkout. So we still have a deal with them. You can always use that. I put it in the show notes as well. Check them out again. They do have an outstanding product, especially the ones that I choose, which are the USDA Prime. I showed you pictures of the ones I like. I always buy the garlic truffle. That's number one. And then the other one we get is the original spice, but we get the USDA Prime version. It's $1 more for the bag, but it's a better quality meat, at least in my experience. It's a little bit more tender, a little bit more moist. That's just an option. Anyhow, check them out. Check out my friends over there. Let's go ahead and get a little deeper into this thing. I saw this story and my folks were just flying, so it made me think about it. Again, messaging is important. Trying to dump problems. You heard Trump say, why don't you talk about our victories on gas? How about this situation? Inside the multi-day meltdown in the Newark airport. This is coming from, who is this coming from? CNN. Air traffic controllers in Philadelphia were guiding planes into Newark Liberty International when all of a sudden their comms crashed. The controller stopped responding. Approach, are you there? The pilot was saying they just basically went completely dark, so the pilots were landing without it. United Airlines flight 1951 coming in from New Orleans was trying to hit the Newark hub. Spent 5 times calling the radio controller before finally getting a response. They finally made contact on there. There was 30 seconds of silence when the comms ultimately went down. That could be a real big problem. What's interesting is I'm hearing messaging from the hard left, and in this case, it's going to be Jasmine Crockett, making claims that the Trump administration is trying to kill us. This has been a neglected problem. Maybe instead of $500,000 on flipping podcasts for retirement, we could be spending money on, comms systems that need to be massively updated. You guys may remember this, but when I was going through the Air Force training, I got my air traffic control card. I know how to go sit in those towers. And it is a stressful job. It's a repetitive job. But you've got to basically keep a bunch of different plates in the air. Let me try to describe this for people who've never done it. If you're on the VFR tower approach, where you are literally looking either through binoculars or you're looking out there in the unaided eye, you are getting handwritten slips or printed slips that are coming out from the radar folks. It says what they're tracking in the distance. Once they get into your terminal airspace, which is a very irregular shape, it's not like a big circle and you keep them flying around in a pie. These are oval-shaped patterns. People drop in and do an oval around the landing runways. And then you've got these weird corners of the way the airspace is done, jagged angles. They call them coffin corners. If you lose people and they fly out of your airspace, you're legally not supposed to be talking to them anymore. So you've got to basically imagine if you had like 25 ducks swimming in a pond and the pond was irregularly shaped. You got to keep touching the angles to keep them inside the pond so they don't walk out. And at the same time, you're also trying to get all of them onto this one little strip that's on the ground. Once you know how to do it, it's not terribly hard. But the more that you have traffic, and then when you have a comms disaster where it just goes dark and you're giving information, because when you're an air traffic controller, you fire and forget. You give them an instruction, they relay that they got it, and then they go and do the thing next. If you're out there saying things into the void and your radio is not working, if I'm talking and the mic is not picking up my voice, those pilots are doing whatever they last heard. Which means they might be flying out of your airspace. They might be flying into somebody else that just got a turn command, and you're expecting everybody to operate properly. It's incredibly dangerous. But it's not Donald Trump trying to make our planes fall out of the sky. Listen to this disingenuous nonsense. You want to talk about people that are just liars? When Trump says that these people, like, why are you guys all so fake? Because you invite people like this on. This is the other side of the decision. This is the other side of the argument. Like, we need to do better than this. We should have a higher standard.
At FDA, same thing as it relates to the planes that are falling out of the sky. Right. We need some real transparency and we need some honesty, and we need to make sure that the American people are just as enraged as we all should be, right, because this administration is truly trying to kill us, it feels like. All
right. Truly trying to, and you heard the guy say, he's like, yeah, right. Yeah, oh, true. Oh, yes. This administration is trying to kill us is going to be the rallying cry that gets it going. It takes me to the next story here, which we're going to kind of wrap up with. 25 protesters were arrested for taking over a University of Washington, also known as UW building. And this is my instinct. This is my looking ahead and seeing that there's danger. Okay, we're hearing messaging from the kind of people. Remember, AOC used to be the messaging op. Now she's like more establishment. She's more classy, so she doesn't have to do that. Now they got Jasmine Crockett out there taking the flak and getting the base flipped up. We have to get people enraged, she said. And therefore you have people who are in fact enraged. And here they are. I'm going to give you guys some B-roll footage of this. This is footage from Jonathan Cho. He's at Cho, C-H-O-E Show. At Show, you guys can see it on the screen here. He referred to University of Washington as a literal dumpster fire. Again, these are the same people that are out there trying to make sure that priests can't do their job. The same state, Washington. Sad, because I really wanted to move to Washington. Spokane is one of my favorite cities. 25 protesters arrested in this building. The group was covering their faces and stacking furniture, the school said. This is kind of quite interesting, what they say and what they don't say. More than 25 students arrested, or people arrested, after a group, quote unquote, occupied. Remember, they always occupy, they don't attack. When you went and they occupied the Capitol at J6, that was an attack. When you occupy an academic building at Washington, demanding that the school sever ties with Boeing because of the war in Gaza, the university spokesperson said that it was a group that was called Students United for Palestinian Equality and Return, whatever the hell that means. And they claimed that they were behind the takeover. They were all arrested, and legal and political support is ongoing for them, said the spokesperson for the group via text message. All arrested except one were inside the building. Some of those arrested were also injured during the arrest, and they needed medical attention. Can I show you what this arrest looked like? This is people just occupying a building. You know, there's burning crap that you're seeing on the screen right now. These are just peaceful protesters. If you don't think that this is where we're going for the summer of 2025, the kind of spicy Western move, just because Trump's in office doesn't mean this stuff has gone away. It's only going to get these people whipped up more. Check out this move back situation.
Move back, 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 move back.
All All right, you don't need to see much more of that, but they're all pushing police backwards, carrying riot shields that are made out of trash cans. The same exact crap that I saw in Portland, by the way, when I was there in September of 2020, when we saw the 100 days of riots, and we came in at the tail end of that with my surveillance group. This is footage from the Post Millennial, or at least posted by the Post Millennial. Literal dumpster fire. They burned a barricade and they moved cops back. Why are cops having to back up from, shield-toting, masked, all-black clad protesters that are actually rioters? Why do they have to back up? Because the same thing that Matt Lohmeyer knows about and was talking about in his book, that irresistible revolution of Marxism. It's ongoing, and it is critical that people understand it. That's why you want people like that in an administration. You need people that know what the enemy looks like, and sometimes the enemy is right at home. And again, nonstop, the media just covers it. This is the Colombia activist Moshe Madawi speaking out in his first network interview. Why does he have a network interview, and why is CBS not interviewing Garrett O'Boyle? Remember, ABC was more than happy to cover a whistleblower attorney. Wouldn't they like to talk to someone who actually did nothing wrong? This guy came to the United States under false pretense, from what we can hear. And he had his visa revoked, and it's actually ongoing litigation because there's a constitutional ability for the Secretary of State to do that. Meanwhile, you will not silence me, he says, this non-U.S. citizen who came here to agitate and get people upset. He's a Colombia student activist and green card holder. If only we could just import more green card holding activists, because America is short on people who do nothing, get paid by outside media sources, maybe get funded by something back in some country that wants to bring division into our own. His comments were his first network interview. He says the Trump administration and President Trump specifically will not silence me. He said the fact that a judge ordered his release was a light of hope to other student activists. We need less light of hope for student activists in this nonsense. Should there be free speech? 100%. That also should be for people that are from this country. It's pretty amazing that that First Amendment that the left wants to go ahead and tout when it comes to the Free Palestine movement. They don't extend it to the confessional, because the First Amendment is not just about free speech, is it? It's about your free right to assemble peaceably and petition for a redress of grievance. What kind of redress of grievance and petition is this? What sort of peaceable assembly is this nonsense? Because that seems like threat of force to me. Having been a law enforcement officer and been in crowds like that in Washington, D.C. and also in Portland, I've seen what that looks like. It's really threatening. It's like someone might throw a rock at my head and I might have to shoot them, because I don't even know which one of these idiots did it. It's the laser pointer in the eye. It's the pyrotechnics being thrown out so your uniform catches on fire. It's all the members of the Bureau of Prisons that were all hurt, trying to defend a federal property and not getting backed up by the city, because that irresistible revolution of Marxism has already taken over in places like Washington and in Oregon. It's problematic, folks. We don't need more of these folks. He said, I'm a peacemaker, and when they arrested me, it's a red flag to everybody. Nope, I think you're an instigator. I think you're a paid instigator, and I think that you came here to do something that you're not allowed to do as a student, quote-unquote, activist. Again, all of this stuff has been done before. If you go talk to people, they've all done these things before. We've had the movements. We had Mike Waller on here. Do you guys remember? Go back and listen to the interview we did with Mike Waller. He talked about how the peace movement and how the anti-nuclear movement was all funded by the Russians. It was all funded as kind of an active measures attempt to undermine the American youth, to get their sensibilities and their bleeding hearts all on the side of things that were antithetical to American freedom and liberty. You will never see a more illiberal group of people than those that are on the hard left. They're totalitarian, they're autocracy, and just like this, they're also the people that are defending FBI agents, it turns out, in their fight to stop election sabotage and autocracy. That's how you end up with these people getting aligned. It's the reason why we have such a problem right now in our federal agencies. I am deeply, deeply concerned about this stuff. Last little piece here, just to get you inflamed. Somebody accused me of trying to run cover for Muslims in Texas. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Here's a little clip of Ilhan Omar on Al Jazeera back when Mehdi Hassan. All of these people are problematic to me because none of them have native-born American sympathies. They all have allegiances somewhere else. You can tell by their accent. You can tell by the way they talk. You can tell about the fact that they think there is a problem in America and it is the dominant culture in America. It is going to build more of these like women who can go out and say the N-word and get a bunch of money. I'm starting to see a little bit of sympathy for the position that Matt Walsh put out the other day, saying that these folks are fighting cancel culture, whether you like them or not. And to think that a mom who has tattoos up and down on her arm, and it seems to be a single mom at that, is out there is the real problem. You know, it's like, maybe not. Maybe that's not the issue here. Maybe the issue is there's a dominant culture in America, and if we could just accept that it exists and it is not bad, it's the reason why all these idiots came here. It's the reason why Medine Hassan has a job. It's the reason why Ilhan Omar came here from Somalia and has a position in Congress. How about that? How about we just accept that the default position is that America is a pretty good place with a lot of problems, as opposed to it's an evil place where white men are the biggest terrorists. By the way, Steve Jensen, J6 attacker, J6 warlord. Who's the one who said that white people were a real problem? It turns out it was FBI and DHS, and it was during the time when he was there as the section chief. Those people are getting promoted under the Kash Patel, Dan Bongino FBI. They might as well be doing the work of Ilhan Omar. Tell me otherwise.
A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise in Islamophobia is a result not of hate, but of fear, a legitimate fear, they say, of quote-unquote jihadist terrorism, whether it's Fort Hood or San Bernardino or the recent truck attack in New York. What do you say to them?
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. And so if fear was the driving force of policies to keep America safe, Americans safe inside of this country, we should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
Got it. Okay, fine. And that backs up what I saw today on ABC. I almost never see a picture of a murder suspect who's been let on the loose. They almost never show pictures of them. They're almost always black people they're running cover for. That doesn't mean that all black people are involved in murder, and it doesn't mean that all murderers are black. But what it does mean is that the media has a concerted effort of not showing you certain types of people when they do certain types of things. And they got no problem parading this guy out there. And I found it quite interesting. He's a murder suspect. He is now on the loose in North Texas. The Van Dant County Sheriff's Office said that they were looking and they were expecting him for a court appearance when he cut off his ankle monitor. That's kind of problematic. He was facing a charge in Kaufman County. These are all kind of like outside of Dallas. It's east of Dallas. He has an active warrant for bail revocation for a capital murder charge. And so what's the story? The story is, let's go to a partisan leftist Democrat, Joaquin Castro, Democrat, Texas, not from that area, who said 3 weeks ago, Aaron Martinez was murdered in cold blood by this man. Well, allegedly is the word you're looking for. I thought we cared about due process in this country. I thought Democrats suddenly discovered due process. He was murdered by a man who wanted to drive Hispanics out of Kaufman County. Now you've assigned a motive to this guy. And if Kaufman County authorities continue to drag their feet on filing hate crimes charges against Trevor McEwen, that's the guy's name on the screen, federal prosecutors need to step in and ensure that justice is served. We are now demanding that the federal government get involved in. This is what weaponization looks like. We've predetermined the outcome. We're going to lean on the biggest hammer possible, and we are going to bring it down. Democrats almost always get what they want in this stuff. Just saying. I don't know that he was involved in a hate crime. I don't know that he was involved in trying to run Hispanics out of Kaufman County. But I do know that the ABC News reported it like it was fact. Did they not? And is that not an issue for regular people? Should you not be concerned about something like that? Because I am. It bothers the hell out of me. Let me lastly throw something out there that I think that if you do not have a plan for things, as things get spicy out there in the world, you will find yourself on the wrong end and not know what to do. This is something that happened in Fayetteville, North Carolina, a place that I have briefly lived in. And I want you to see it, because you need to figure out what your plan is before something bad happens to you. In the same way that those cops didn't know what to do when the Move Back Shield guys started marching, they didn't know here. This guy had no plan. I can tell you what my plan is, and I told my wife the same thing. Number one, keep my kids safe. The second thing is, if you just shot a man in cold blood and you're marching around with an AR or an AK in a parking lot outside of my area, I'm putting one in your head. I'm going to drop you. Because I have the training, the experience, and I know what the deadly force policy looks like on the constitutional end of things. And I will stop the death of, or the serious physical injury of, third parties. Men in America need to start taking some responsibility for things like this. This guy gives a perfect class in what not to do. Bad information to 911 and watching as a dude is out there and another man bleeds to death. I have no idea if both of these guys are bad guys, one of these guys are bad guys, but if you go out in broad daylight and smoke somebody like this, we got a real problem.
It's an AR.
So what you're seeing right now is a black male with dreadlocks. He's wearing like low-hanging pants, a dead man on the grass, or a man who is actively dying, who's been shot, and the dude is standing at the back of his backed-in vehicle.
No, you can't do nothing.
Then you're going to see a woman
Get the fuck in. You're going to have him shoot over here, bitch.
Holy shit.
This is not the way that you talk to your girlfriend, but
I got him. Be careful. I got you.
This is that classic. Fayetteville is full of a lot of
He's looking over here.
left-leaning women as well, just like most of Carolina has a lot of this now. She wants to see what's going on, so she's going to stick her heads out while somebody is marching around with a rifle after having just killed somebody on the grass in broad daylight.
Move, Sarah.
Move, Sarah, seriously. Ladies, get yourself right. Men, get yourself right. Make a decision in advance. Look, they're cuffing the guy up, so the cops came in and got him. That guy didn't get medical attention. He died there on the grass. Okay, that's what happens if you don't have a plan when things get stupid. If somebody starts marching at you, or they block your street, or you don't know what's coming next, you're going to end up a victim because you failed to plan in advance. And this summer is going to be that, locally in small areas. So if you don't have a plan for what's going to happen in your area, you're already behind the curve. That's what I got to say to you. Make yourselves smart now. Make decisions about what you're going to do next now, so you don't end up with somebody dying on the grass because an ambulance can't get to them just like that. Okay. We're also going to say, I got a palate cleanse for you. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging. Let's throw this on the screen right now. It's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. That is where our main chat always is. And I do appreciate you guys being out there. I'm seeing you talking. Continue. You can also join us over on YouTube. We're seeing record numbers popping up over there for us, obviously. YouTube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. Make sure you have liked the video if you are currently watching right now. If you're watching in the replay, please do so as well. Locals, you can join us for the locals community where we interact on the back end. We get the Sunday special early. That happens at KyleSeraphin.com. And lastly, if you want to share the podcast, and I appreciate it if you do, KyleSeraphinShow.com. I can almost guarantee you that there's going to be things on this podcast that no other news sources are covering, at least not in the depth that we will. Does it mean that I know everything? No. But I'm giving you a perspective. Go out there, agree, disagree, add it into the comments. I appreciate all those. Some of you have managed to change my mind with some of the things you say. Bring some interesting information to it. I like it. That's what we're here about, okay? Let's do a palate cleanse and kind of like shake off this nastiness. How about those immigrant jobs that we missed? This is a little bit from the Kill Tony piece, and this is Shane McGillis doing his fantastic Trump impression. It's the issue with illegal aliens. They're taking all the black jobs, you know? Yeah, you tell me what you think.
What do you do? Right now I'm working at Trader Joe's. Just like
Trader Joe, that's what we call this guy. He's sold out this country.
This might be the first episode where I literally pass out in the middle of the show.
Welcome to my world. This is the future.
Trump, I got a question. You on your debate the other day, you said illegal immigrants are taking black jobs. What the f are black jobs?
The illegal immigrants are being extremely loud on buses. They are all types of stuff that we said this used to be blacks. Remember when this was blacks and we liked it when they were black because they could dance and they were fun. What a great...
Because they were black and dancing and they were fun and being loud on buses. Shane McGillis is a treasure too. That guy's absolutely hysterical. All right, folks, thanks for joining us for the program today. We really appreciate all of you that do so. I hope you have a fantastic day. And if you're watching over on Rumble, we're going to go and drop into the American Radicals podcast. Those are two actual whistleblowers, not Mark Zaid style, real guys that lost their jobs. Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle, they're up there doing their thing. We'll play it, and I hope you guys check them out as well. I hope you have a fantastic day. God bless you. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.